This is the Retire Mentality channel. Today, I'm going to give you 10 tips for first-time home buyers. So if you're thinking about buying a house, this is the video you need to watch. And if you need further proof, just look at my shirt. Trust me, I'm a realtor. I know what I'm talking about. I also owned a mortgage company, so I'm going to talk about things you need to know from the from the realtor side and from the mortgage side. So I'm going to give you 10 awesome tips. Let's get into it right now. Okay, if you're thinking about buying a house, these 10 tips are definitely things you need to know about before you get too far into the process. Some of them are things that deal with the real estate, with the realtor side, and some of them are with the mortgage side. And like I said, I owned a mortgage company and I'm a licensed realtor. So I know how to help. I love working with first-time home buyers. I love people getting into home ownership and on their way. I try to transition people from their first house into being a real estate investor. So I'm not going to get too far into it right now, but I buy one house every year, and that's how I got to financial independence. So this could be your first step on that path as well. So let's get into the 10 tips. Tip number 1, obviously you need to get pre-qualified for a loan. So you need to talk to a mortgage person. Most people in today's market, it's so competitive. If you don't have a pre-approval letter or a pre-qualification letter, they're not even going to consider looking at your offer. So this is step number 1, but it's for many reasons. You need to know what your credit score is. You may not even qualify for a loan, so you don't need to be out shopping for houses if you can't qualify for a loan. I'm doubting that you're paying cash if you're a first-time home buyer, so you're going to need that mortgage, and you need to know what your credit score is. So go to a lender, tell them you want to get pre-qualified for a loan. They're going to pull your credit. That way you can know all 3 of your credit scores. The lenders are going to take the middle one. So if you just pull some free online thing on your computer, you may not get all 3 scores, and it might not be a true representation of your actual credit score. They're also going to figure out your debt to income ratio. This is the amount of debt that you have. It only takes into consideration loans that you have, car loans, student loans, credit cards. It doesn't take into consideration things like power bills, Wi-Fi bills, stuff like that. So you need to be able to calculate your debt to income ratio. And then based on the type of loan you're going to get, you have to fit into certain parameters. Your debt might need to be 32% or 48%, including your housing expenses. So the mortgage person will be able to figure all that out for you. And while we're talking about types of mortgages, the loan officer will also be able to tell you what kind of loan programs you can qualify for. It's going to be based on your debt to income ratio, your DTI. It's going to also be based on your credit score. So you may qualify for that 3% down FHA loan, but you may not. You may have to put 5, 10, 15% down. So these are things you need to know before you start looking for a house, because maybe you don't have 15%. Maybe you need to save up more money, or maybe you need to clean up some credit issues before you start looking. So these are all things to know before you go out and find the perfect house and spend 6 weeks or 6 months looking at houses only to find out that you don't qualify for a mortgage. It's frustrating for you, the lender, the mortgage person, everybody. So just get this done first. Number 2 goes along with this. While you're at your mortgage loan officer's office, ask them for an estimated closing cost sheet so you can see how much the closing costs are actually going to be. Because if you're thinking you only need 3% for an FHA loan or 5% for whatever type of loan you qualify for, you're going to have closing costs on top of that.
Now you're going to say, Jeff, but I'm an FHA expert and you can roll your closing costs in.
You can sometimes, but not all the time. You need to know what those costs are just in case. So find out how much your closing costs are going to be. That's number 2. And number 3, as long as we're talking about costs involved with buying a house, if you do get to the point where you find a house that you really like and you want to make an offer on, ask the seller, ask your realtor to ask the seller to give you an estimated cost to own. Now this is a breakdown. You can calculate your principal and interest payments, but you can also probably go online and get the taxes. But you're not going to know what the insurance costs are for that house. So ask the seller how much they pay for insurance, and also try to get an idea. Maybe the seller can tell you how much an average of their power bills are, their water bills, their internet, their Wi-Fi. These are all things, their garbage pickup. Find out, try to get a total picture of what it's going to cost to own that house. People crunch the numbers in their head based on principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But they forget about some of these other things. If you're going from a tiny 1-bedroom apartment and you're buying a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, you might be used to paying $80 a month for a power bill, and now maybe it's going to go up to $250, $300 a month. So those are things you need to calculate into your home buying to make sure you can actually afford the house that you're trying to buy. Number 4 is get a realtor. I just told you to ask your realtor for that cost of ownership, cost to own on the house. But a lot of people don't get a realtor early in the steps. A lot of people just don't even know that a buyer's agent is free to buyers. You don't pay a buyer's agent. The buyer's agent's commission come from the seller. So it's a free person working for you. When you just pick up the phone and call the listing agent because you see a cute house on Zillow or realtor.com or wherever you're shopping, you drive by, see the sign in the yard and you call that number, you're getting the listing agent who's working for the seller. They have a fiduciary responsibility to get the seller the most money they can. So they legally can't try to help. I mean, they can obviously sell you the house, but they also are bound to get the seller the most amount of money possible. Tip number 5, this may seem kind of like a strange tip for somebody who's trying to buy a house, but I think it's important. I'm gonna call it drive a shitty car until after you buy a house. It could also mean don't go buy big TVs or big expensive things. They're all gonna count against your credit score. People, by the time you get to the place of buying a car, it means buying a house, it probably means you're doing well, you got a raise at work, you saved up a bunch of money, and you start to get in your brain this lifestyle creeps up. It's time to buy a house, it's time to buy a new car, it's time to get new clothes, whatever it is. They all seem to happen at the same time. So keep driving that shitty car till after you get your house. Houses are appreciating assets. Cars are depreciating assets. Cars make you poorer, and the nicer car you get, the poorer it makes you. I mean, they say that it loses 50% of its value the day you drive it off the lot. So just keep your life as it is, and keep your expenses as low as possible till after you get the house and you get used to making that mortgage payment. You'll be able to get the house you want. This is not the advice that I like to give, but you'll be able to qualify for more. It doesn't mean you have to get the most you can qualify for. That's a whole nother video. But just keep your life low till after you get into the house. Number 6, ask the lender what documents you're gonna need as the loan progresses. A lot of people just get a pre-approval letter, which is the minimum required to show that you've talked to a lender. A lender took a brief glance at your documents, a few things, and says, yeah, this person can qualify for a loan, I think. So I would suggest even going one step further and getting the pre-approval, not the pre-qualification. The pre-approval is where they actually look at your pay stubs, your tax returns, all of your documents, and they actually qualify you for a loan. You're gonna have to do it anyway. The number one reason that deals fall apart, especially for first-time home buyers, is because their financing fell apart, because you didn't know you needed your tax returns done, or you didn't know that you had to pay off this loan to qualify, or they find some collections later on that you had, or something pops up and kicks your loan out. So it's always based because you didn't give all of your documents to the lender up front. So tell your mortgage person, hey, give me the list of everything you're gonna need. Let's get the pre-approval done. Let's make sure there's no skeletons in the closet, because they're gonna find them. Just get all that out of the way as fast as possible. Number 7, if you do find a house and go under contract, be sure you get a home inspection done. The obvious reason, there's 2 reasons. Number 1 is you need to know if there's any major problems with the house, and the inspector will go in and find these problems and let you know, so that you know what you're dealing with. A lot of times sellers aren't going to fix them, and that's brings us to the second reason you need a good home inspection. If you do find major problems or even minor problems, it's a great way to renegotiate the price. Usually you've already negotiated the price, you've written an offer, it's been accepted, and you're kind of locked in, but then you get a home inspection done and you find out that the house needs a new roof, or there was a leak in a bathroom that's gonna need the subfloor replaced. Well, this is an opportunity, if the seller's not willing to fix the problem, for you to renegotiate the price and get some money off of the purchase price so you can get the repairs done yourself. Number 8, know your long-term plans for the house. Are you gonna live in this house forever? I doubt it. They say that most people live in a house for an average of 7 years, and I think that's even lower for first-time home buyers. A lot of times you're buying a small house just to get into home ownership, and that's great, and that's the way you should do it. So are you using it as a stepping stone to sell it, build up a little bit of equity, sell it, buy a bigger house later? Or are you gonna buy it and then live in it for a year or 2 and then buy a second house and then keep this house as a rental? What are your long-term plans? Because that should dictate what kind of house you buy. Maybe you know that in a few years you're gonna have a job transfer, or you're gonna have a baby and you're gonna need a bigger house or whatever. Just try to think what your long-term plan is and just buy a house according to that, not just what today you need, but also for tomorrow. Number 9 is look at the debts that you have. If you have $10,000 on a car loan, maybe you have 3 small credit cards with a couple $100, but the monthly payment is $100 or $80 or something. Pay off those small loans that will give you more room to qualify in your debt to income ratio. The smaller ones, a lot of times the payments are bigger in proportion to the loan. So start chipping away at those small debts to get those out of the way so that you get your debt to income ratio in line. And I hope you're still with me. We made it to number 10. Number 10 is hit the like button down there and subscribe to the channel. It's Graham Stephan right there. I had to do it. I don't ever do those things, but that's just kidding. Number 10 is buy a house. Go buy a house. Don't get analysis paralysis. Don't watch 100 of these videos. Work on these steps, get pre-qualified, get your credit in order, get your money saved up, get a pre-approval and go start looking at houses. A lot of people think about it. Most markets right now, housing is appreciated at 10% a year. So if you were going to buy a $100,000 house, next year it's going to be 110. If you're going to buy a $200,000 house, next year it'll be $240,000. No, that's not right. $220,000.
They said there'd be no math.
So anyway, I hope you're watching this to take action. A lot of people just watch and they don't take action. So use this information to help you get to the actual process of buying a house. I hope you liked the video. If you do, please do hit that like button down there. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. And if you want more content on this subject, leave me a comment down below. I'm happy to answer questions. I try to answer everybody's questions. And that's it. I'll see you in the next video.